Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 20th of September and we're going to deal with two very important topics. Actually, it is one topic, but yes, we have a subtopic with it. The topic is One Nation, One Elections. In March, the Ramnath Kovind-led high-level committee submitted its reports to the President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, with respect to One Nation, One Elections. Coming forward to September 2024, the cabinet has accepted the recommendations of the Ramnath Kovind panel with respect to One Nation, One Elections. One Nation, One Elections simply mean that there will be elections at one point of time for the parliament, state legislative assemblies, as well as the third tier, that is the urban local bodies or the panchayats. There were multiple issues with respect to elections being conducted at different times, like logistical issues were there, a lot of money was being wasted. There was policy paralysis because every election there was a model code of conduct, and during that model code of conduct, no new policies and all could be launched by the government. So, to address all these things, One Nation, One Election is here. Actually, this is not the first time that India is having this One Nation, One Elections. Till 1967, there were simultaneous elections happening for the center as well as the state level. Local levels were not formed at that time, or they were not uniform across the country at that time. So, we will look into all this. We will also see the constitutional validity of One Nation, One Election, how they are constitutionally valid, and what are the apprehensions with respect to this, how this One Nation, One Election is going to be implemented. All these things we are going to see in today's this particular session. After this, as we do, we will move on to the MCQs and then we will be discussing the MCQs of yesterday. Now, One Nation, One Election. As I mentioned, that there is one country, and in one country there are multiple tiers of the government. We are a federal country, the central government, the state governments, and then the third tier, that is the panchayats or the urban local bodies. Why to have elections for all these three tiers separately? Why cannot we have elections for all these tiers at one point of time? This will save a lot of time of the people. This will save a lot of money because every time you go into election campaign mode, obviously money is spent. Actually, it is wasted. That wastage of money will reduce. And it is not, a very small amount of money which is there involved in elections. Huge amounts of money are there involved in elections. So why to go for that? The environmentalists on the other side, they are also wanting one nation election because during election time, the carbon footprint of India increases or worsens. The government officials who are, deployed for election duties frequently, they leave their work, day-to-day work, and they go for, election duties and all. Their work is impacted. The government's work is impacted because government cannot roll out any new policies, or I would say schemes, because the model code of conduct comes into force right from the day when the elections are announced by Election Commission of India, and ultimately the people suffer. And considering all these factors, the government of India has now decided to go for One Nation, One Election. This was part of the 100-day agenda program of the government. The cabinet has given nod to the recommendations given to the President of India by a high-level committee chaired by our ex-president, Mr. Ramnath Kovind. This report was submitted to the President of India in March 2024, on March 14 to be exact, and now the cabinet has approved it. Cabinet approving it does not mean that One Nation, One Election has come in India. The main task is left, and that main task is amending the constitution for giving effect to One Nation, One Elections. And there are multiple provisions in the constitution which will have to be amended. Some of these provisions do not require the assent of the state, but yes, some of these provisions do require the consent of the state as well. States means 50% of the states should be agreeing for that. Now, in this scenario, it becomes important that 50% of the states, they ratify that constitutional amendment acts, then only they will be affected, or they will be coming into effect. And probably the timeline which has been chalked out by the government of India as of now seems to be 2029. Means in 2029, when we will be going in for polls, we will be going in for simultaneous polls for the Parliament of India, that is Lok Sabha, the state legislative assemblies, as well as the panchayat levels. Any government in the states or at the local level being formed after 2025 will be formed only till 2029. This is also one of the recommendations of this high level committee. So let's look into the details of this one nation, one elections. So this, first of all, high level committee, who were all part of this high level committee? We know that this high level committee was chaired by our ex-president, Mr. Ramnath Kovind. But who all were the other members of this committee? Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, former Rajya Sabha Leader of Opposition, Ghulam Nabi Azad, former Lok Sabha Secretary General, Subhash Shri Kashyap, former Chairman of the 15th Finance Commission, Mr. N.K. Singh, Senior Advocate Harish Salve, former Chief Vigilance Commissioner Sanjay Kothari, Law Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal was a special invitee to the committee. So it is this way. What does simultaneous elections mean here? Simultaneous elections simply mean that elections at one point of time for Lok Sabha, for state legislative assemblies, and urban and rural local bodies. Means all the three tiers, one election should be there. Means elections at one point of time should be there. One election simply means this. One nation, we are a nation. So whenever this one nation, one election gets implemented, so let's suppose you're going to vote. So you will have to cast three votes, one for the MP, one for the MLA, another one for the local candidate, means the urban local body or the rural local bodies. Currently, all these elections are held independently of one another, following, timelines dictated by terms of every individual elected body. Now, the need for simultaneous elections. Was there a need for simultaneous elections? So obviously, there might be certain, I would say, arguments or certain, I would say, standpoints with this committee. That is why they have recommended in favor of one nation, one elections. So let us see what are the arguments in favor of one nation, one elections. First, frequent election burden on the government exchequer. See, Election Commission of India is a constitutional body. It is responsible for conducting elections at the parliament level, means at the national level, as well as at the state level. The State Election Commission is responsible for conducting elections at the local level. So, a lot of money goes into this. Logistics are there, deployments are there, you know, awareness campaigns are there, run by Election Commission of India. So, a lot of money goes. So, there is this burden on the exchequer. Who bears that money? The government of the country bears that. So it is like this: asynchronous elections cause uncertainty and instability, thwarting supply chains, business investments, and economic growth. So whenever elections are there, so these kind of normal day-to-day life is disrupted. And when it is disrupted, so it there is an impact on the day-to-day lives of the people. Disruption of government machinery due to asynchronous election causes hardship to citizens. The government employees and all, they are deployed for election duty or something like this, and in this they are not able to do their job. Frequent use of government officials and security forces adversely affects discharge of their duties. So obviously when they will be deployed for election duties, so they'll not be able to do their duties. Frequent imposition of the model code of conduct causes policy paralysis and slows down the pace of developmental programs. So model code of conduct comes into force as soon as the Election Commission of India announces the state elections or the national elections, or the state election commission announces the elections for the panchayat. Now when the model code of conduct is there into force, no new schemes, policies and all can be launched by the government for the citizens. So there is an impact. Staggered elections induce voters' fatigue and present a significant challenge in ensuring their participation. Frequently when elections happen, first for the national level, then for the state level after a few years, then after a few years for the panchayat level. So, and there is a lot of migration in the country. People cannot go back to their respective hometowns to vote again and again. But when this one nation, one election will be there will be a much synchronized, I would say, method of elections. This much synchronized methods of elections will definitely lead to, I would say, more of enthusiasm among the voters. I can say that, because see, that voter is going for this particular uh, exercising of this particular right once in 5 years. So maybe the voter turnout, will increase. It is less likely that it will go down, but yes, it is more likely that it will increase. So because voter fatigue will reduce. Now the general recommendations by the Ramnath Kovind committee. First is amending the constitution. Obviously, constitution needs to be amended. In the first step, simultaneous elections will be held Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. For this, no ratification by the states will be required because there is this article in the constitution which gives the central government, means the Parliament of India, the power to legislate over the national elections, the general elections, that is, and the state legislative assembly elections. So for these kind of amendments, which will bring synchronization between the general elections and the state level elections, no ratification will be needed. But for the third tier, the synchronization where needed, the amendments done for those articles, where there will be, you know, uh, ratification needed by not less than one half of the states. This is for the municipalities and the panchayats. So this is going to happen, and single electoral roll and election ID will be created for the purpose of preparation of single electoral roll and electoral photo identity of cards used in elections to all the three tiers of the government. Constitution should be amended so that Election Commission of India can prepare a single electoral roll and election ID in consultation with the state election commissions. These amendments will require ratification by not less than one half of the states. So these creating single electoral rolls. Electoral rolls are, names of all those voters in a constituency. Presently, what happens is constituencies for the center is different, for the state elections are different. But yes, there will be synchronization in that. One single electoral roll will be created and which will have the names of all the voters. The digitalization definitely will help over here. Now, in case of a hung house means when no party or no coalition is able to, achieve majority, then what will happen? In the event of a hung house, a no confidence motion or any such event, fresh elections should be held to constitute the new Lok Sabha or State Assembly for the unexpired term of the house. Unexpired term, let's suppose this hung house or hung assembly is there created after 2 years of a government, a coalition government. Then, the elections will be conducted again for that particular level. But the elections will be, the government will be formed after those elections for the remainder of the term, that is 3 years. So that is how this one nation, one election will be able to uphold itself. Meeting logistics requirements. The committee has recommended that for meeting logistical requirements, the Election Commission of India will plan and estimate in advance in consultation with the state election commissions. So this is going to be a big challenge because, presently our logistics or our manpower is not up to that tune that on a single date we conduct elections everywhere around the country. But, we need to meet that first, and Election Commission of India will be having time to meeting that till 2029 if, the first one nation, one election has to be there into effect. So this has to be done. What is the implementation plan? Actually, two-phase election process. Two-phase election process. So we're talking about simultaneous elections to the Lok Sabha, to the legislative assemblies of the state, and to urban local bodies and panchayats. So these three levels of elections have to be done in one go. So it will be done in two phases. Phase one will be about Lok Sabha and state assemblies. And within 100 days of phase one, phase two will be there for local body elections. 100 days afterwards, the elections to Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies will be conducted. The elections to urban local bodies and panchayats will be conducted. There will be a common electoral roll. Unified electoral roll will be maintained for all elections. Voter ID cards will be prepared by the Election Commission of India in collaboration with state election authorities. National consultations. Center will engage in detailed discussions nationwide to build consensus among political parties. The implementation group will facilitate discussions and seek support across various forums. Obviously, there will be a lot of resistance to this, existing system. So consensus building has to be done, and that is going to be a very crucial task for one nation, one elections to be implemented. Single electoral roll. Proposed changes include a single electoral roll for all polling within a constituency, which will also require state ratification. A Law Commission report is expected to release a report soon recommending simultaneous elections across all tiers of government starting in 2029. Now, the key recommendations by this panel. First is appointment of date. An appointed date will be set when Parliament meets to notify the transition. Assemblies formed after this date will only serve until the subsequent general elections in 2029. So, whenever the Parliament announces a date for discussions on this one nation, one election, which I'm pretty sure is going to be there soon, after that date, when the discussion happens in the Parliament, it will be declared that whatever elections are going to happen after this date, they will be over. The terms will be over by 2029, whether it is, if the elections are happening in 2025, the term will be of 4 years. If it is happening in 2026, the term will be of 3 years. If it is happening in 2027, the term will be of 2 years. Like this. 2029, all the terms have to end. Then only, one nation, one election will be coming into effect. Short-term assembly terms. States holding elections after appointed date will have shorter terms, as I just explained. State elections in 2025 will have 4-year term until 2029. 2027 will have 2-year term until 2029. Fresh election in special cases. In case of a hung house, no confidence motions or similar events, fresh elections may be held for either the Lok Sabha or the state assemblies. New governments formed will only serve the unexpired term of the preceding assembly. So unexpired term, let's suppose after 3 years, a government dissolves after coming into power. The new government formed will only be serving for 2 years. Constitutional amendments. Total recommendations. The panel suggests 18 constitutional amendments, most of which do not require state ratification, but some will need parliamentary approval. 2 amendment bills will be required. First will introduce Article 82A for transitioning to simultaneous elections. Second bill introduces Article 324A, empowering the central government to legislate for parallel elections of local bodies. Currently, elections for the local bodies and all are under the prerogative of the state governments. Ratification process. The parliamentary procedures. After introduction of the 2 amendment bills, Parliament will follow the amendment procedures under Article 368 of the Constitution. Since only Parliament is empowered to legislate the election laws regarding Lok Sabha and the Assembly, First Amendment Bill will not need ratification from the states. But matters related to polling in local bodies are under the state subject and will require the Second Amendment Bill to be ratified by at least half of the states. So, one bill 82A which is introducing will not require the ratification by the states, because Lok Sabha is only empowered to make laws with respect to elections for Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. Whereas on the other hand, the second bill, that is 324A, which is going to be introduced, will require ratification by around half of the states. So it is going to be there. Presidential assent will be given to both these kind of bills, requiring states assent, not requiring states assent. When the president gives the assent, then only these constitutional amendment bills become acts. And, one nation, one election will be coming into effect. A lot of critiques of, one nation, one election are questioning the constitutional validity of one nation, one election. And this high level committee was aware about this. So this high level committee in its report has mentioned one of the chapters, that is chapter 6. It deals with the concerns raised by those who oppose simultaneous elections on various grounds. So this high level committee has also addressed those grounds in one of the chapters, that these are the, I would say, resistance we faced, or these are the criticisms we faced on these grounds, and we would want to make clarification that, one nation, one election is not violating the constitution, or it is not going against the constitution on these grounds. Why, how, or what are these grounds, why it is not going against these, we'll see over here. First resistance which this high level committee faced was, is it unconstitutional and against doctrine of basic structure? Doctrine of basic structure was rolled out by the Keswan and Bharti case in the year 1973, something like this, in the 1970s only, and it was a landmark case. And in the landmark case, the essence of this basic structure doctrine is that the parliament has the right to amend the constitution, but the parliament cannot amend the basic structure of the constitution. What constitutes the basic structure has been decided time and again by judicial interpretations. Now, the concern with respect to this particular, you know, basic structure was the report says the opponents of simultaneous elections argue that they are unconstitutional as they require for premature dissolution of state legislative assemblies, which would be against the will of the people. So, once that date is there, any assembly getting formed in 2025 will be only there for 4 years. Any assembly getting formed in 2027 will be for only 2 years. So they said that people did not vote for those assemblies to be there in 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. They voted these assemblies to be there for 5 years at least. So what this committee has to say? According to the report, there have been instances of legislative assemblies of parliament being dissolved sooner than 5 years due to a lack of stable majorities or political instability despite the numbers. So this committee says that this is not going to be the first time that the state legislative assemblies will be dissolving before completing 5 years term. Many a times in almost every state of India, assemblies have been dissolved without completing 5 years term. And most importantly, the clarification given by them is they say that Article 83 and 172 say that the term shall be 5 years and no longer than 5 years. Means it is mentioning, the constitution is mentioning maximum term of 5 years. It is not mentioning any minimum term. So since it is not mentioning any minimum term, it is not violating the constitution. So this is what the clarification by the committee has been there. Second question was, is it against the democratic principles? So concern was one nation, one election would hamper the electoral process. The scheme would also violate the rights of the citizens. Now on this, what has been the clarification given by this committee? Report rejects the claim and says that simultaneous elections would rather ensure the best utilization of time and resources of those involved in electoral processes. They would lead to a curtailment of the role of financial resources, which is one of the biggest concerns when it comes to free and fair elections. So, financial resources availability is very much a crucial factor for winning elections. Those who have the money are able to spread their word in a much better way and are able to win elections. But are these actually free and fair then? So, that is basically a big question. But when this one nation, one election comes into picture, you know, the requirement of money will be there only once in 5 years and can be accumulated by many candidates. And then actually it will be free and fair. One nation, one election would also result in better governance as governments would not be driven by populist measures. Simultaneous elections neither stop someone from voting or participating in elections nor dismantle the current system of free and fair elections. Does it undermine federalism? Concern simultaneous elections would violate the rights of the states. This is what many have to say, because they say that when they are going for voting for the general assembly or general elections for the I would say national government of India, you know they might overlook the local issues and vote for the local candidate also in line with the national candidate. The clarification report counters the concern by mentioning articles 327 and 328. Article 327 allows Parliament to make provisions with respect to all matters relating to or in connection with elections to either house of the Parliament or to the house to the either house of the legislature of the state. Article 327 gives the right to the Parliament to make laws with respect to elections for the central level, that the national level, and for the state level assembly also. Article 328 says that states can legislate in relation to elections to their legislative assembly, but they cannot legislate on those matters on which the central government is legislating for the state assembly. Means mutually exclusive rights are. See, central government is allowed to legislate for general assembly, elections to the parliament, elections to the legislative assemblies also. Legislative assemblies of the state also have this right to legislate for elections for the legislative assemblies of the state, but on those topics only on which the central government has not made laws for the state legislative assemblies. That is what it is saying, 328 and 327. So they are mutually exclusive rights already, and it will not undermine federalism. It will not take away the rights of the state legislative assemblies to legislate with respect to state legislative assembly elections. Then Does it fail to address the issue of hung parliament or assembly? So numerous political parties have said that the scheme pertaining to one nation, one elections doesn't have any provisions to solve the problems of a hung assembly or parliament. The clarification given by them is report talks about Sarkaria Commission, which addressed the issue and gave suggestions to address the challenge. When there is no majority, the governor can do the following things in the same order of preference. Number one, pre-elections, coalition should be invited to form the government. Number two, invite the largest party or stake claim with the support of others, including independents. A post-election coalition of parties can also be invited to form the government. A post-election coalition in which some parties in the coalition form the government and others support it from outside can also be there. No, we need to figure out ways. See, one nation, one election cannot prevent a hung assembly. A hung assembly is where nobody or no political party or coalition is able to form the majority or pass the majority mark. This can be there. This situation can be there despite one nation, one elections being conducted. Now, how to manage this situation? The Sarkaria Commission had recommended that a pre-coalition alliance could be called to form the government and given time of 6 months to establish majority. A post-coalition alliance should be formed, should be called upon to form the government. Supports of independence, if needed, can be there. Support from other coalition members from outside, if needed, can be there. From outside means they will not be part of the cabinet and all. So all these things can be done and all these things are done now also. So all these things need to be taken into consideration. There will be more coming on this one nation, one election in the times to come, because I'm pretty sure the media, the print media, that is newspapers, the Hindu and the Indian Express, will be covering more on this. Whatever unique viewpoints will be there on this, I will definitely be covering them. Don't worry. Now coming on to the MCQs. Who was heading the high level committee for making recommendations on one nation, one elections? I'm not going to read out the options also. I would expect that without options, this question should be attempted. Second, which of the following necessitates the need for one nation, one election? First, extra burden on the state exchequer due to frequent elections. Second, frequent disruption of government services. Only one, only two, both one and two, neither one nor two. Third, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. All the constitutional amendments needed for giving effect to one nation, one election need ratification by 50% of the states. Second is one nation, one election will include elections for the third tier, panchayats and ULB as well. ULB stands for urban local bodies. Only one, only two, both one and two, neither one nor two. Fourth, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. The Constitution provides for a minimum and maximum term of the corrected parliament and legislative assemblies of the state. The Constitution provides for minimum and maximum term of the parliament and legislative assemblies of the state. Second statement is parliament and state legislative assemblies have exclusive rights for making laws with respect to state assembly elections. Only one, only two, both one and two, neither one nor two. Fifth question, consider the following statements and mark how many of them are correct. There was one nation, one election system in India till 1967. Second, under the current recommendations by the high level committee, neither the parliament nor the state legislative assemblies can be dissolved before 5 years term. One nation, one election can lead to reduction in policy paralysis. Only one statement is correct, only two statements are correct, all the statements are correct, or none of the statements are correct. So I would be expecting correct answers with respect to this. Now discussing the answers to MCQs of yesterday, that is 19th of September. First question was, consider the following statements with respect to smart agriculture and mark the correct one. Smart agriculture uses geospatial technology. Yes, it uses. Smart agriculture aims at improving soil health, reducing the negative impacts of agriculture on the environment, improving productivity. All these are there, improving the farm incomes. So this statement is also correct. This statement is also correct. Both 1 and 2 are correct. Second, consider the following statements and mark how many of them are correct. So the word is how many. India, as of now, is not extending smart or precision agriculture initiatives in horticulture. No, this statement is wrong. In the recent announcement only, the government has said that mission on integrated development of horticulture, smart agriculture in the horticulture domain will also be extended. So under this MIDH, that is mission on integrated development of horticulture. Smart agriculture in India is funded by the Agriculture Investment Fund. Yes, this was formed during COVID-19 and, it provides funds for smart agriculture. 3% interest subvention is also provided. Precision agriculture is impacted by digital divide. Yes, it is impacted negatively by digital divide. Precision agriculture, smart agriculture, and the same thing. So here we have two statements correct. So B is going to be the correct option. Third, consider the following pairs and mark how many of them are correctly matched. The word is how many of them are correctly matched. Hezbollah, a Shia militant group based in Lebanon. This is correct. Impacted by the pager blasts as of now. Houthis, a Sunni militant group based in Yemen. Houthis are based in Yemen. This portion is correct, but they are not Sunni, they are Shias. Hamas, a Shia militant group based in Gaza. They are based in Gaza. This is correct, but they are Sunnis. So this statement is wrong. So this statement wrong, only this statement is correct. So A is going to be the correct answer. Fourth question, consider the following statements and mark the correct ones. MG Narega aims to provide 100 days of unskilled work, 100 days in a calendar year, to every individual in rural areas. So this statement is wrong. UPSC also has asked a question similar to this. It is not every individual, it is every household. Means minimum one person from a household, from every household in the rural areas will be entitled for 100 days of work. Minimum one person from every household. It can be more than one also if there is work, more work. So this statement is wrong. PM Jandan Yojana aims at increasing financial inclusion in India. Obviously, it aims at increasing because it is opening bank accounts and all under this PM Jandan Yojana. So B statement or B option, that is only two statement, is correct. So this is how the answer to this question is. And with this, we've come to an end of today's session. I will be ending this class or ending this session now. I'll be seeing you tomorrow with more such informative pieces. Tomorrow, I will also be taking up the thematic discussions, the next SDG. And, you know, till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Keep watching the videos, keep attempting the MCQs. Also, keep developing the approach to attempt MCQs because small things are there where your MCQs can go wrong. So, this is how you grow in your learning. So, that is it from my end. Namaste, Jai Hind.